What's going on, guys? Big welcome to you all to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta. We are back with yet another deck profile. This time we have Megacolony. We have Gredora. It's one of the cards that I was always a big fan of and enjoy playing. Reasons are unknown. No, reasons are that this deck give you actually a lot of control over your opponent plays, and this was one of the hardest matchup for me as a Spike player to play against. So with time I thought, hey, why not to get the deck myself and play it, and with that you know how to play against a certain deck. This is one of those fast deck profiles that we go through deck, especially a premium deck. And if you guys have more questions about them, we could always come back and explain them. So let's start with the grade 3 lineup, of course, and then go back to grade 2s, grade 1s, and then end up with the grade 0s and then the strides, of course. If you're new to the channel, of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment in the comment section below. What do you think of the premium format right now? Because some people, actually a lot of people, hating the premium format as we from Crushing the Meta, or people in general that play the game sometimes competitively actually do like the premium format. So it's different from the one to the other player, but we are very interested in most people in the community if they still like to play premium, or they're hating it, or they're loving it right now. So I think most of you guys would be in between, like liking playing it but prefer standard. For us, we play both. For me, I prefer premium. Okay, let's go through the deck, and as I said, come back and explain later on a little bit about the deck and your choices, other choices that you could make, but we will not go too long into this deck profile. Okay, for the grade 3 lineup, we start with the 4 copies of Gredora herself, of course. With the new set, set 10, of course, this deck could get an upgrade. My take on the deck, I have 2 different builds that I play. This is the aggressive build, but you also have the more control build that puts your opponent at 0 damage and kill them with Zoa. It depends which one you want to play and which one you want to see. This one would be more on the aggro build, which is actually very strong, but still could control the base of the game because of the fact that you have Gredora as the grade 3 and Gredora as the strike. Alright, so the 4 copies of Gredora followed up by 4 copies of Antlion. This is one of the cards that you need to have in the deck if you want to kill with Zoa. And last but not least, I add 1 grade 3, which is the OG Darkface. The OG Darkface will always be an iconic card for me. I love playing in the past, and this is the only card that I need to have an SP in this deck. This, with the new stride, of course, makes an ultimate lockdown that your opponent actually could not really do much. This deck could be very crazy, very strong against certain decks that really rely on those Vanguards. So yeah, this is your grade 3 lineup. And again, in the future, with the new sets for Megacolony, Chikazi, Spreckles, and Shadow Paladin, this deck will change. For the grade 2 lineup, I play 4 copies of the newest Triple R, which of course puts one of your Vanguard into your soul. Means you could get your Zoa turn earlier because you could activate this with Antlion. Also, when he attacks, your opponent cannot intercept for the rest of the turn, which means that he could work around cleanse that could go to protect 2 to be able to guard that attack, because of course Antlion said that your opponent cannot perfect guard. So yeah, one of the reasons why you still play this card in this deck. Another 4 copies is Hercules. Hercules is another card that helps you with rushing. It's an amazing card that you would play in this deck just to keep the pressure up on your opponent. Counter charging, getting power is good. And when you look at Megacolony, there are not that much good grade 2s that you want to play or you can play. So this is one of the reasons that this guy will be in here. With the new supports, with the whole new mechanic for Megacolony, this will change, of course, to something different. Last but not least, we play a 3 copy of the rare from the, again, the newest set for Megacolony that we have in the TCG released. And this card is actually very good. Killer Lancer, I think his name is. Killer Leaf. What he does is pretty much when he attacks the Vanguard, Counter Blast, Soul Blast, he could get Power, which is plus 10, and then your opponent mills the top card of their deck. If that card is a grade 1 or greater, then you may draw a card. So you pretty much mill a trigger from their deck, or you mill a normal unit, and that's when he gets Power. Again, another card to keep pressuring your opponent with. Counterblast is kind of heavy in this deck, especially because sometimes your opponent would not give you a lot of counterblasts to work with, but it's another card that could use that counterblast. And of course, you also have the countercharge engine of Gredora herself. Then we play the 4 copies of Hornets, another card that gives you the ability to search your grade 3s. Very important to have him at 4 in this deck. Then we play Blister, which is a promo, a very old promo. We play this card at 3. This card sets when it's placed on the Guardian Circle from hand. You choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and that cannot stand during this turn, which means against any restanding Vanguard, this card is good. So let's say against Kagero, against Oracle Think Tank, against Dimension Police, against anything that have a restanding Vanguard, this card could be very effective. That's why we keep the 3 copies of it in this deck, because this deck could destroy clans that rely on Rearguard, but sometimes you have clans that rely on Vanguard. Of course, this would not work against clans like Grand Blue with their new ship Stride, or Gear Chronicle with their next stage kind of abilities that rewrite into something different, because this only works when the Vanguard itself would want to restand. We play 2 copies of Phantom Black, another card that works very good with the Zoa combo, but because we are not focusing on the 0 damage build, we are not focusing only on the Zoa combo, so that's why we only play 2. We play another 2 copies, and this is one of the cards that came out in the Gredora. It's a pretty good card. It has the ability that if you are striding, so if you have a grade 4 with the Dark Face in its card name, so when you stride on your Dark Faces, because the stride keeps the name, this card after boosting, he gets the extra 3k, and then he could go to the soul to draw you an extra card, which means you could pressure with this card, you gain the soul, and you get more cards to your hand, which is good. And last but not least, we still play 2 copies of the Stride Folder. This is a card that helps you to get the right grade 3 to your hand if you're searching for Gredora, especially if you're searching for the 2nd copy of Gredora to be able to stride for Zoa to ultimate stride. Alright, for the grade 0s, we play the V Starter. This would change with the new art, like the new art more. And then for the triggers, we play 8 crits. This is the Stride Folder crit, so you could stride with, and the crit that goes to Soul Power. Yeah, again, we are going with the aggro build, so we're going with crits, we're not going with stands, and also not going with draws. We do play draws, of course. We play the 4 draw, which is the Perfect Guard draw, Sentinel draw, and then we play 4 heals from the V series, of course, because they have more shield and they give more power. Alright, for the strides, we play 4 copies of Gredora herself, an important card to have in the deck. It does make a difference to play 4. My opinion, after my testing, you sometimes do need a 4th copy of her. Of course, she is defensive, but also offensive because of her first ability that your opponent cannot Superior Call anymore, meaning also they could not G-Guard, which is a pain in the ass for some decks that rely on G-Guarding. And the second ability of her is when she attacks, you Soul Blast. That's why you have a lot of cards that go to Soul. You Soul Blast, and then on attack, she will be able to call grade 3 and give her power. So that's pretty good. That's one of the reasons why people like to tech this card in the deck, because this card, whenever it's called, you can restand one of your other Rearguards, which means you have 1 extra attack. So you would have 2 extra attacks, one with this and one with the other one. It's good, but again, I don't like inconsistent builds. He doesn't even have a marker, so that's why I don't play him. I don't even play him as a one-off. There's also no way to put cards from your drop zone back to the deck, so you could recycle him somehow. You could not do that, so yeah. Next card that we play at 2, we have 2 copies of Overwhelm, 2 copies of the new Stride. We play 2 on 2. This is the new Stride, which is also a pain in the ass for some decks that go very fast through their G-Zone. This card could be very destructible. It what it does is pretty much on attack. Yeah, on attack, you counter plus 1, turn 1 card from your G zone face up. Your opponent chooses 3 of their face down cards from their G zone and turn them face up. And then with each card who has power, each card turned with power, your front row gets an extra 15k. 3 units in your front row get an extra 15k. So this is crazy because it does give a lot of power, but at the same time it does flip a lot of your opponent cards G zone. And sometimes when you go into the second or the third stride, then your opponent would pretty much have to make a choice on which cards they want to flip, because normally they really do not want to waste that G zone. Of course, if you're playing as a turbo GB8 deck or those kind of decks, then you don't really want to do this. But again, if you're going with cards like the original Gredora that your opponent cannot severe, right, then you're already killing the GB8 deck. So yeah. So we play 2-on-2. Overall, of course, helps you to draw more cards and also gain more power. And then for the other tech cards that we play 1 Spear and 1 GB8. You have space in this deck to run multiple cards. Another card that is good to run, I don't run it, is Seabreeze. You could still run 1 Seabreeze because this deck do need GB to work, so it's good to run Seabreeze. But on the other hand, it's not good to waste 2 Counterblasters in this deck because this deck could be Counterblast heavy. So that's why we play Bar Spear right here, because it's a good card to stride into if you don't have Counterblasters that could draw you a card and get a little bit more power, because this deck is made to pressure your opponent. You keep attacking your opponent's Vanguard, you keep attacking face. One other card that is good finisher is of course the GB8 himself. You don't really go that much into him, you most of the time also flip him, but I love the art on this card, and it's just again another iconic card to run in this deck. So we run these, and of course last but not least we run 1 Nation Stride and 1 Zoa. Zoa is pretty much the biggest finisher in this deck. Zoa's combo with Antlion, and of course if you have Phantom Black as well, it's just so insanely good, and it could just kill your opponent right away. Doesn't really matter how much damage they have. Downside to this card in this deck is if Zoa doesn't work and your G zone get burned, you do not actually have a way to recover except riding into Antlion and trying to do another Antlion thingy. But pretty much this deck rely on the G zone or the strides to finish. So if you go to Zoa, then make sure that they don't have strong G guards, or that they just don't have enough shield. So pretty much up to you. That's why you also have the 0 damage build that I've also shown on the channel before. I could put a link, but maybe you guys haven't seen it and you can check it out, of course. But this deck for now is more fun to play than the 0 damage build. Although the 0 damage build is kind of stronger because you keep your opponent at 0 damage and then you finish them right away. It's very defensive deck and kills with the Antlion combo. But sometimes if your opponent has 2 or 3 G guards, then they could stop that, and with that the deck falls apart. While this deck actually from the start of the game puts pressure on your opponent, and although that you give them all of those counterblasters, most decks will come in short because it's you could not really go around Gredora. There is just, if Gredora gets the first strike, especially if they get the first strike, then pretty much, yeah, you're cooked if you're playing the wrong deck against this clan. We play 1 of the Flip G guard. This is a good card to help counter charge and soul charge, of course, but again it's a Flip G guard, so sometimes it helps to get to the right amount of G zone. We play only 1 because as I remember it's only Vanguard. Let me see. During the battle that your opponent Vanguard attacked, yeah, when the opponent Vanguard attacks, so it doesn't have to be Vanguard, but it does need to work on the opponent's Vanguard. And because it doesn't really get that much shield value, it's only 15k, it's kind of strange that this works on Vanguard. One of the reasons why we only play 1 copy of her. Another one copy is of course the other card that also set Vanguard, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, during the battle that your opponent's Vanguard attacked, your Vanguard attacked by your opponent Vanguard. So this card is Vanguard, and what it does is a counterblast of 1, and then you rest all of your opponent's back row. And the thing about this card is, it's like Defeat Flare. It's so effective against certain matchups that your opponent needs that back row to boost, and this card could change that. It does get a little bit of shield value, which is good, but most of the time it's good because it does rest your opponent's back row. A card that does get shield value is this. This is one of the cards that's we would still play at 2 when we talk about Megacolony, because it's good, it's effective, it gets power, and it does help just guarding. Doesn't really get that much power, just the extra 10k, but Megacolony doesn't really have better G Guardians. Okay, other cards that you could run in the deck to make the deck stronger. Let's go back from G Guardians up to the Strides, and then we go back. So this is one of the cards that people still like sometimes to tag in their Megacolony deck. It's good, but it does require you to discard a card from your hand, and it depends on your opponent's hand. But it's a good shield value that it gets. But one of the things, I think this is another card that said when your opponent Vanguard attack. Yeah, during the battle that your opponent Vanguard attacked. So it's most of these G Guardians are Vanguard. And one of the things that I dislike about these kind of G Guardians is that they don't always work when you want them to work. So that's one of the reasons why I don't run this card in this deck. And this card is situational. So my opinion, no reason to run it. Another card that you could add to the deck is another copy of Overwhelm. I didn't feel that it was necessary to do so. For the grade 3s, we shown this already. It's a good tech card that you could play. It could come as a surprise for your opponent just to have that extra attack. But your attacks are not that strong, especially if you are going into the Gredora turn. So most of the time, it's just one card or maybe at max 2 cards from your opponent's hand to guard that attack, which usually will not be the case to win the game. But hey, if it does help, it does help. I've seen people take 2 or even 1 copies of this card in their deck. If he had a marker, then I would definitely play 2 copies of this, because I don't mind riding it as a first ride target, and that's why I play the 4 copies of Antlion. But because this doesn't have the marker, I don't want to run it. You could run a 4th copy of Leaf. Again, a very good card, but it does counterblast and Soul Blast, so I think it's heavy on the cost. Another grade 2 that is also very good is Water Gang. It's when he restands, you could counterblast 1, put this card into your soul, and draw 2 cards, and that does work on the stand and draw. So you will be able to stand, counterblast, draw 2 cards, then draw for turn. So you draw 3 cards at the start of your turn, which is very good in the early game. But again, it does require you to counterblast, and because this card already counterblast it's like you don't want to play 4 on 2 or 3 on 2, but you could play 2 on 2 if you want to. You could just take out 1 copy of this and 1 copy of Hercules to run this card into the deck because it's fun. But I like Hercules more because he pressures your opponents, and your opponent needs to guard most of the time his attack, because otherwise you get the counter charge. Another card that is good to run is another card from the G era. This is a very important card in the past. He has 2 abilities. The first one is a GB1 Dark Device, which means in the row there nothing standard. Then his skill will go off, which means he could go to the soul, and at the beginning of the main phase he could go to the soul and you could counter charge 1. So it's kind of soul charge and a counter charge, which is perfect. The second ability is that if you have Dark Device or Vanguard with Dark Device, then your opponents cannot intercept with that Graveyard in the same row. So it's a good card, but it has only a 5k shield, and yeah, you just have better grade 1s to run. When it comes to this deck, you have a lot of good grade 1s to run, but you have less good grade 2s to run, in my opinion. You have another good counter charger. I do like to play this card. Sometimes I just run it at 1, just a random tech card in there. All plays you Soul Blast, he gain plus 6k, and then if you have no cards face up in your G zone, I mean in your damage, then you could countercharge one. So he could be very effective just by countercharging one, but yeah, you just have better grade ones, and then you need to call this card, which you normally, maybe in the late game, you don't want to do that anymore. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the deck, and also the other tech cards that you could put in the deck. Let me know what you think of this deck. Is it one of your favorite decks to play? Is it one of your least favorite deck to play? Or you don't know much about the deck because you haven't really played against it in the past that much. For me, I do like to play these kind of decks, again, because they are very good as to play against friends. So they know how to play against these kind of decks, and at the same time it's sometimes fun to play decks like Megacolony, Nubutama, just to mess with your opponent a little bit, and it's fun. It's just like playing it for fun. I definitely don't play this competitive, and if I do play competitively, then it's always Spike. Alright guys, that's it for me. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for all the support you give to our channel, and yeah, keep up with our videos, and we see you next time. Bye bye.